just how much this game has changed. And if you're a newer player, it's definitely changed way more than you already thought. Masteries, items champion a monumentally different. Wards, runes, every aspect of the game is monumentally different. Wards, runes, masteries, item game is monumentally different. Wards, runes, masteries, items, champion abilities champion, reworks champion, reworks. You know how the map changes because he's champion, reworks champion, reworks. You know how the map changes? Because of course it does. We have elemental drakes. That's a thing, right? It's always been a thing. Heck no, it was not always a thing. In fact, the only way the map used to change and transform was the seasonal maps. Bring it back, right? League of Legends history is jam-packed full of interesting, fun, and cool, unique things that used to be in the game and no longer are. And to Riot's credit, some things are actually quite a bit better today, and of course some things are a little worse. I can guarantee you that at least one thing in this video you will have either completely forgotten about or never even knew existed, so make sure you watch until the end. But before we hop in, this video today is sponsored by NordVPN. If you're still not using this name again, you can use you should know this is available. Talk gold dragon comments. Let's go back first to the year 2016. From this game were jungle. One thing you will see repeated a lot today is that certain mechanics from this game weren't necessary. Completely removed from League of Legends, just tended to move to a different place. A good example is this first item we have here, Hunter's Potion. This is an item I completely forgot about until rewatching some old games. It built out of refillable potion and was pretty cheap. It was similar to Corrupting Pot kind of in the sense that it had charges, but it didn't have any burn. It was a useful jungle sustain item, having up to 5 charges that could be gained back one at a time by killing large monsters. It was removed during the mid-season of 2019, which happened because Riot wanted to make the process of clearing jungle much healthier and more consistent. Junglers can survive in today's game without this item because the jungle doesn't really beat you up the way it used to. The reason that jungle used to hurt a lot more is that you used to have to make a choice where you could actually start and whether or not you could even full clear. The two options for the jungle items were Talisman and Machete. Talisman was the AoE burn, while the Machete was better for auto attack heavy junglers. Anyone who could start the Talisman could effectively clear the wrap. think Amumu or Hecarim. However, by starting Talisman and not the Machete, taking your Gromp and taking your buffs would require a lot more time and might not be totally feasible on your first clear. Up until literally this patch, junglers did not need this item for the last couple of years, and the big reason for that is that the jungle intrinsically had much more sustain built in. Smiting would heal you and taking Gromp would heal as well. But now that we've all played in the new jungle for Season 13, what's interesting is that we might see something like this return, but it's probably still unlikely. While it's true that the new jungle has less sustain, Riot is looking to buff that base value. They clearly want the system of jungle health to happen automatically through the clearing of camps, rather than being tied to an item, or I guess just in this case, the pet item. And again, that's kind of the pattern that you're going to see today. A lot of things. Another good example is the camps. Rather than beat them sustain, Riot is looking to buff that base value. They clearly want the as less for Season 13, and taking Gromp would heal as well. But now that we've all played in the new jungle for Season 13, what's interesting is that we might see something like this return, but to an item at the start of the game, and when you die, and come late game, you run faster out of base. It kind of seems weird that people have been calling that the home guard, or saying get your home guards. Why do players have a name for that? Well, that's because for about the first 7 years of League of Legends, Home Guard wasn't something that was a given or happened automatically. You had to buy it on your boots. Boot enchantments are incredibly nostalgic. After completing your tier 2 boots, you could purchase one more upgrade for pretty cheap, and these would give additional bonuses. The options were Alacrity, Captain, Distortion, Cure, and Home Guard. Several of these things are still in the game today, just found in a different place. The Distortion boots are a perfect example. Buying these was basically like having the Nimbus Cloak and Cosmic Insight runes, but combined into one. These boots and Home Guards were just a Janet passive, which is more boring than light extra move, but other than that, you didn't see it too much. By the way, the 50 boots into the Alacrity enchantment, but other than that, you didn't see it till 15. Build these totally uncommon to see your Hecarim top lane back in 2015. Build these first. And look for a huge TP play into the bot lane. By building these early game, it was also sort of like a pseudo teleport or Quinn ultimate, helping you get back to lane faster. A beloved item that was removed in the Season 11 item rework was Athene's Unholy Grail. Many of you, especially those of you out there that main Nami, will remember this being your go-to support option. It was similar to what we have nowadays with Moonstone, but what you might not know is that this wasn't always your support option that the Enchanter would build. Instead, Athene's actually started out as a mid lane item. Back in 2013 to 2015, often this was your first choice as potentially a Syndra or Orianna mid lane. The reason this was so good is that it gave a decent amount of AP as well as a very strong mana passive. Again, we have this system still today. What we have in the presence of Mind Rune now was attached to Athene's. It also gave magic resistance, which is very important. Because if you're laning against another AP champion in the mid lane, that champion that built Athene's versus the champion that didn't would have a huge advantage, so both mids would typically rush this. That meta of building Athene's was deemed a little bit unhealthy from Riot, which is understandable, so then that would be transferred into the Abyssal Scepter meta, which again was a huge part of League of Legends mid lane history, but a lot of people have forgot about it. A rushed Abyssal Scepter about is being able to buy more potions. You know how they're limited to 5 and they currently cost 50 gold? Well, that's a slap in the face to old League of Legends. They were 35 gold each and had no limit. A legitimate opening strategy for Mordekaiser, keep in mind this was the pre-rework Mordekaiser, not even the dragon summoning one, was 13 health potions. It wasn't just about 13 health potions Mordekaiser. Ago. Commonly scaling champions like Veigar, Kassadin, or Kayle could start an item called Crystalline Flask. This was the predecessor to Corrupting Potion. It didn't do any damage or have a burn, but you could buy more potions on top of it. You could go Flask, Health Pots, Mana Pots, and Wards. Buying potions was much more common and more utilized during the early game, and it was a much bigger portion of laning phase. Speaking of Mordekaiser, let's talk about him as well as some other champions and abilities from the past. During the 2015 Mordekaiser Juggernaut rework, he became Riot's first attempt as a melee bot laner. Their way of forcing him into the bot lane meta was just by making him blatantly overtuned, which is a great way to balance your game, by the way. Also, this dude could summon the freaking dragon. Man, this was a crazy time. On live, Darius's E is a strong and annoying ability to some of you, but Trust me, you have no idea just how buggy and BS this used to be. This used to be the most horrendous ability in the entire game. You could dash or flash out of the pool. You would clearly not be in it, and he would pull you anyway. And this would happen all the time. No Nidalee as a high-skilled jungler, and she's not really present in any other roles. However, for about the first 5 years of her existence, she was not a jungler at all, but instead a solo laner. Well, a lot of it had to do with the fact that she didn't have access to her ultimate until level 6, whereas today she has access to it at level 1. When you were stuck in human form, it would have been really difficult to clear the jungle, and her spears did like 3 times as much damage and had 3 times the width on the hitbox, thus making her a very good poke mid laner, and also a bit of a hybrid bruiser top laner as well. Ever since her release, Lissandra is more or less the same champion. She's always been a pretty strong mid laner, and feels pretty good to play, but she's had a couple of quality of life buffs that have been pretty decent. For example, her ultimate, by the way, did not used to heal her at all, and her passive is completely different. It's still a bit of a weird passive. These ice thralls don't always help you and they can be a bit glitchy, but it's better than her old passive, which is to say that she used to not even really have one. It was a horrendously boring passive, and a game where passives are usually now an entire extra ability. Well, then again, Nasus's passive is still this. There was an extra ability. Well, then again, Nasus's passive is still this. There was a period of time where Lux had again, Nasus's passive is still this. There was a period of time where Lux had resets. Her ultimate has always had a pretty low cooldown, but they gave her a buff where getting a takedown would lower the ult cooldown even more, and she could start shooting 2 lasers during one teamfight, or, in this crazy ARAM clip, 3 times.
Not really working out, as the depth charge will be enough, and Zeus gets here on time, and that Tryndamere is just not doing damage in the backline. Will be able to take out Faker's clone, but that is it, and that doesn't count.
Something that Shaco, LeBlanc, and Wukong players take for granted these days is that their clone abilities are rather good, especially if the Shaco is playing AP Shaco. It can be very strong if used properly, but as ridiculous as this might sound to a brand new player, the clones did not used to show jungle buffs. If the Shaco or LeBlanc or Wukong had a red buff, the clone would not, making it very easy to discern the real one from the fake. If you don't think League of Legends has come a long way, just look at this Reddit post from 9 years ago. Someone was able to get 91 upvotes saying in response to a question about why the clones don't have buffs, saying, "We don't need buffs," in reference to Shaco not needing to be more powerful. The world of League of Legends is completely different today. If this was somehow bugged out or LeBlanc clones didn't show buffs, and which is really stupid, I agree. If not, why the clones don't have buffs, saying 1 upvote. Saying in response to a question about why the clones don't have buffs, saying, "We don't need buffs," in reference to Shaco not needing to be more powerful. The world of League of Legends is completely different today. If this was somehow bugged out or LeBlanc clones didn't show buffs, and which is really stupid, I agree, it would be the #1 thing complained about on Reddit every day until it got changed. The jungle itself could be an entire video all all on its own, as it's been changed over 100 times. But let's talk about this a little bit. What in the world is happening on your screen? Why?